It's all right. I've got it. I've managed to make that work. It's very exciting. Well, welcome everybody. I know it's afternoon in Victoria and the rest of the states, but in WA it's still beautiful 10 o'clock in the morning. For those of you who haven't been on our webinars before, I'm Paula. I'm the resident HR specialist at the Open Door Coaching Group. It's a pretty cool title. And I've got Bridget with me.
Hello, everybody. Yep, Bridget Calvert, Learning and Development Manager for the Open Door Coaching Group. So welcome.
So welcome everybody from wherever you are. I know that there's people on the podcast and people watching, and you'll watch it later as well. Before we start, I would just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that everyone is meeting on today. For me, it is the Noongar land over here in Western Australia, and I'd like to pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging. And for those who are not in Australia, we pay respect to the Indigenous people of your lands as well. So today's session, we're going to be looking at performance plans, and I love that Natalie always says this one. She says, I put myself on a performance plan. And I think it's one of those things where sometimes things get a bad rap because they've not been used quite right before. And so I'm on a performance plan, I must be really bad. Actually, everyone should be on a performance plan because it's really just about improvement. Bridget, have you had any, how do you feel about the term?
I do. So performance plan, exactly. It's you conjure up the idea of performance plan, something that's a little bit frightening and that you tap into maybe once a year. But yes, I think from a coaching approach, a performance plan and how we operate on a day-to-day basis and be able to check in and reflect on what we're doing, I think is really, really important.
Beautiful. So, let me make this work. Oh, can everyone see the next slide?
Yes. Yeah.
Beautiful. So our agenda for today, we're going to look at why they get such a bad rap. And we're also going to look at how you enable and how they enable high performance. I think what happens, particularly when you have people who are high performers, what can happen a lot is they're like the forgotten people because they're doing what needs to be done and they get very little love. But in actual fact, you need to love them as much as you do everybody else. And as always, these sessions are really about creating community, creating shared learning experience. Hopefully they're thought-provoking, hopefully they're super fun. And we would love to hear from you. So as we're going through, if you have questions, if you've got thoughts on a particular area, please let us know. Because we'd love to be able to share them with everybody.
Terrific.
All right. Here we go. So performance plans. To achieve great things, two things are needed: a plan and not quite enough time. And I think really this is just about, in order to grow and develop, you actually it has to hurt a little bit. There has to be a stretch in there. It has to be something that you're attaining. And so that's where it comes in, that performance plans are about that extra stretch, the extra bit that you add in there. Bridget, how much time have you got, and is it enough?
Never enough time, Paula, I have to say. But I think it's important to have the plan, certainly, so that so you have that I suppose for some people a tick list, for some people a visual, for some people a plan to be able to see where you are, where you're going, where the destination is, or the outcome, or the place where you want to start to check in on a regular basis too. So absolutely, it's really important to have that stretch. So we're not just sitting in our comfort zones, just, moseying along and not really giving it much thought or reflection, or we're just, doing our thing every day without really thinking about it. So I think, the idea of not having quite enough time is just, giving us a bit of an edge to just continuously check in, check in with self, check in with others, just to make sure that we're stretching ourselves, often. Yeah,
absolutely. So why do performance plans have a bad rap? And if there's anybody, I've gone one too many. If anybody wants to pop into chat the reason they think that performance plans get a bad rap, The number one is that they're mostly associated with underperformance. So you get put on a performance plan if you are underperforming. And in my experience, they're implemented as a last resort. Well, look, we've tried everything. So Paula, can you please come and put this person on a performance plan because, you know, it's the last step before things get worse. A lot of the time they're unclear or really overdue. And so people, it sort of puts people on the back foot because they've been doing things not right for a long time. And then we're suddenly putting it in there. And in my experience as well, and I'm sure Bridget, you'll have examples of this too, it's sort of a telling approach, which is the exact opposite of a coaching approach. Well, you're not doing well in this area, so these are the things that you have to do to improve, as opposed to this is not working, you're not doing well in this area. What are the things you think we could do to improve? There's generally a lack of buy-in from the employee because they're being told something, and it can be a long drawn-out process, and it can lead to demotivation. Anybody else on the line got any other notes as to why the performance plans generally don't work?
Yeah, look, I think, Paula, certainly you're absolutely right in terms of the fact that it is associated with underperformance. So we have this picture in our minds in terms of it's a below the line experience, isn't it? You know, so we talk about performance plan. Oh, I've done something wrong. You know, I'm not performing. I'm underperforming. I'm poorly performing, and so therefore there's a consequence to that. And you know, so it's, as you say, implemented as the last resort because we don't know what else to do. And it really is or has been or can be about managers taking that telling approach, because it's like, well, this is what, you know, I'm telling you what you've done wrong, and this is what I want you to do instead. So it's the focus is on the thing that's gone wrong rather than the stretch, essentially, or what you would like to see instead. That becomes the focus of the conversation. And so therefore that is demotivating, isn't it, in its own right? I think people walk away feeling deflated, that they haven't been, you know, filled with inspiration and a desire and that support to be able to see what they could be doing instead.
Yeah, and even the questions around how did we get here? Like, what's been happening that meant that you're not performing at the level that you need to be? And it's not always about underperformance either. It is actually about the flip side of that is you are doing extremely well. Let's talk about what else you would like to be doing, or how else we can build on those great strengths that you've got, and that's your performance plan. So it's that flip side of, yes, it can be used for underperformance, but it's also, it should be used for everybody. And Alexandra's also added in that it can be time consuming, and yes, it can be. And a lot of the time expectations are unclear, and that also has an impact. And I think the time consuming thing is performance plans actually shouldn't be separate to the great conversations you're having every month or fortnight with your team members. So if you're actually connecting your performance plan in with your regular catch-ups, which we've talked about in previous sessions around performance reviews not being an annual event, they're really just connected in as part of the learning plan that you're utilizing with the people that you're working with.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, the idea that they're unclear and well overdue and take up so much time is because you're really trying to get your head around or updating on what's actually going on. If so much time has been left in between those performance, you know, conversations or performance plans, you know, focus, if you like. So as you say, that more regular conversation makes it more current, makes it more real, makes it more focused on what's happening for you now, rather than trying to, you know, get your brain into gear thinking about what's been going on, you know, between such a long, you know, such a long break or such a long time between those performance plan conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. So the focus is really on continuous improvement. So the quote here is that the biggest room in the world is the room for improvement. And I don't think anybody could honestly sit there and say that they are dead set legends at everything needed to be in the world. And I think the idea of continuous improvement, again, I think it gets a bad rap because it gets stuck in quality and safety and it, or, you know, those sorts of areas. But continuous improvement is just every day, how do I look at who I am and what I'm doing and find ways to do things better?
Absolutely.
It's the simplest form for me.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, we talk about, you know, we're using, I think a shift in language is really important too there. So if we're talking about, you know, underperformance, we want to get rid of that and change it to, if this is where I'm at, you know, how do I lift that performance? How do I shift it or change it or raise that performance, and getting rid of that language, which means that, you know, this is where I'm at and I can improve. I can do even better if I was to do something. So, yeah, 100% agree with you. It's that daily thought around what I've done really well, what I could do differently, or what I could improve, or how might I approach something in a slightly different way to do even better.
Yeah, I think that is really the essence of performance development, to be honest. And this is one of my favorite models when looking at performance development. It's the 70-20-10 model. And basically what it says is that 70% of the learning that someone gets in the workplace is experiential. So that means it's on the job, it's situational, it's the experiences that they have, the challenges, anything they do to overcome it, and their practice. And that's actually where you get the best value from the learning that's going on. The 20% sits in the social, so coaching, which is obviously where we sit, where you have a dedicated time to have a conversation with someone, feedback, buddy systems, sharing, collaboration. And then the formal setting, which is programs, courses, e-learning, simulations. They all have an important role to play, but what I have found a lot is that, you know, someone says, oh, this person needs to get better at this. What course do we send them on? As opposed to flipping it and saying, let's start at the bigger space. Where can they get experience in the workplace in the area that they need to improve? Who can they talk to? What experiences can they have that would make their learning experience greater?
Yeah, I agree with you, Paula. I think that whole idea about that experiential learning, that on-the-job learning, where, you know, it's tactile, it's real, it's in the moment. You know, you're learning through your problem solving in the moment. You know, you're taking on tasks that potentially are challenging and stretching you. You know, so therefore that there's that continuous improvement process, you know, tapping into that as well. You know, you're trying on different approaches. You are, you know, taking responsibility for trying new things as well. So it's innovative, it's reflective. All of those things make that 70% really, really important. And as you say, that 20%, you're supporting that experiential, aren't you? You're supporting that 70% through the coaching, through the collaboration, through, you know, giving and receiving feedback, as an example, that group learning and being able to review on that. That's, you know, that 20% that's supporting the 70%. And of course, then, as you say, the formal, that 10% of those programs, those workshops, you know, the training, courses and e-learning and things like that that support. But that's not just it. The 70 and the 20% have really got to build upon that 10% piece, you know, if you're going to use it.
Yeah, and I think that 10% piece doesn't get utilised as much when people come back to the workplace as well, because if you're not embedding it, it gets a little bit lost. And one of the things that I like to work with my managers around was when someone goes and does a course or adds a new skill set, how does that enhance the team as a whole? So how can they put that into practice? How can they present that back to the team so that the knowledge is shared amongst each other? How do you really get the maximum benefit out of that in your development? from that. And that experiential piece adds to, you know, if someone's on a leadership program, and our programs are fabulous, by the way, the key to that as well is when they get back to the workplace, how are they sharing that knowledge? In what ways could they broaden the learning that they've just done and bring others in? So I think that's where that 70-20-10 model really comes into play, is really maximizing the benefit of the learning that's being undertaken.
For sure. And as you said to start with, that 10% of let's just throw someone on a course to fix something, you know, unfortunately, sometimes that's where it stops. It's like, well, you know, we've fixed the problem, or we've put a Band-Aid over something by, you know, responding with a formal course or something, and then that's where it ends. But essentially, the value in taking that further, as you say, with the extra 70% and the 20% to really, you know, evolve it into something of value, is really where that 10% comes in as being really important.
I'd love to hear from the people who are with us about if they're using this at the moment, how their organisations are utilising, the 20-10. I always get confused. I want to say 80 for some reason, but the 70-20-10 model, or any really great examples of where someone has gone and learned something and brought it back for a team that's really made a difference. So if there's anybody out there who's got some super cool examples, please let us know. I'll move to the next slide so we keep going, but chuck them into chat box and we'll catch up as we go along. So we've looked at the reasons why they get a bad rap, but let's look at the reason why they are so important. So if you go to bed with dreams and wake up with plans, I spend a lot of my time dreaming about amazing things. So what the reason that they work is that it gives people clear goals and it's really targeted. So opposed to even the term leadership, you want to improve in leadership. Okay. I mean, it's a really small area to look at. It's really quite well defined. Not. What particular area of leadership is important for you? What's the one area that would make a difference to what you're doing now? Gives clarity and focus, can be measured. It's in black and white, and there are some people for whom that's super important, that it needs to be written down and be seen. It enables communication. It opens up the opportunity to talk about what's not working, or what is working, and what do you want to keep doing, and what do you want to add to it. It provides accountability. It's motivational. We know that people who have a clear idea of where they're going, what they're doing, how they want to get there, who they need to work with, are much more likely to keep goals. It recalibrates too. Sometimes the goalposts shift. Sometimes there's a different direction. Things happen in people's lives, and it really just gives you that opportunity to connect back with that and say, is this what I want to be doing and where we want to be going? And it also makes it very obvious if there's too much on your plate, which can sometimes get lost if you don't have clear targets. It gets lost in the what you're doing. Anything else, Bridget?
I think the performance plan helps high performance, because it really is changing the dream into a plan, isn't it? So you can dream and you can visualize and you can see where you want to be, what it's going to look like, what's going on around you. You can have this really great dream, and to be able to nail that down into that clear targeted goal, that gives you that clarity and that focus in terms of where you are going with that it's written down, as you say, so that you can actually see where it is that I'm heading. This is where I am, this is where I want to be, and that in itself encourages that communication between people in terms of how am I going to improve or lift or shift, raise my performance so that I'm high performing. Absolutely provides the accountability, because it's there in black and white. It's spoken about, it's verbalized. Absolutely motivational, inspirational. It allows you to check in on a regular basis, of course, as you are progressing and evolving with that plan, to see what's working well, what's not going so well, you know, how you can recalibrate so that you stay on or get back on track. And, you know, that too much on your plate. It's interesting because I relate that back to the original slide about not quite enough time, because it makes you aware, doesn't it? It gets you really conscious and aware of exactly what you're doing and how you can fit it in, and maybe what needs to change.
Yeah, absolutely. And so this is from the Inner Game of Tennis, which says performance is potential minus the interference. And I think that's really important, is that people often talk about, oh, that person has lots of potential. What's the reason the potential is not actually coming to fruition? And often that is because there's interference. So there's a limitation, there's something not happening, there's not a space for that person to go into, or they have their own internal interference. There's something that's stopping them from doing something. And as coaches, our job is really to find out what is that interference, and how do we help them to remove or push through that interference.
And I think that performance plan that's focused on a really regular basis as a working document, you know, that we're using all the time, supports us in being able to recognise what's interfering, be it external, internal, to be able to build on our potential and sort of perform highly, I suppose, if you want to put it that way, so that our performance is, you know, going in this direction, moving up the pathway. So that's why I think that performance plan is a really important working document.
So, and I think this is the other point too. If plan A didn't work, the alphabet has 25 more letters. Stay cool. And let's face it, I don't know whose plan A works all the time. Certainly not me. And the point is that they're not actually, they're iterative. So it's for me, it's a working document. It's not actually you put the plan in place, you put it on the wall, and you hope that you're going to make there. It's really about, it's interactive, it's the conversations you have, you change it depending on what's happening in the world, and you just go to B and you go to C. But if you don't have the plan in place, then the B's, the C's and the D's don't have a place to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, look, I think it's great to think, well, you know, what am I learning if I've got to move to plan B or plan C? You know, what would I do differently if I have to move on to plan D? And, you know, what are you learning about yourself? You're building on your own performance through having to switch plans potentially as well. It doesn't always have to be, you know, the perfect pathway. The value in moving to plan B, C, D, whatever, is that flexibility in your approach to something.
Yeah, and I love that. I love it's the questions that come out of it. So what was in your control? What was out of your control? Or all those areas that you can really delve into that really help someone build their capability and skill in that area. So the template that we've got is keep it simple, and the whole thing about the clear, unclear bit is that I think sometimes they get extremely complicated, and I don't think it needs to be as complicated as it can, as it gets. We've just had someone pop into the chat too that they agree with the 70-20-10. They're currently working in an event planning organisation, and they've identified that experience on the events is paramount. And absolutely. So I think we underestimate actual experience that people have had, the lived experience, and what they can share with other people. So thank you for your comment. So the template is simple, and we've got one that we've filled in to give it a little bit more idea. Excuse me. So, and look, change the wording for whatever works best for you and your team. So for example, if key projects isn't the right terminology, put the terminology that works best for the person. But it's really just about saying, what is the area or the key deliverable area or the objective that you've identified as an area for improvement? Mm-hmm. What are the projects that person that falls within that area? And then what are some of the activities that will happen so that you know and these are really trigger points. So when you get to week 26th of Feb and you're having a conversation with that person, you can go back and have a look at it and go, what were we looking for the measures of success? What were the kind of activities that you were going to be working on, so that you can start that conversation and say, how are we going with that? What does that look like? And then start your really great coaching questions from there.
Fantastic.
Anything else, Bridget, in regards to the template or examples of when they've been used really well?
I think it's really great for not only that, you know, chunking it down to those manageable steps so that you can see clearly those steps along the pathway to reach where you want to go, but it also gives you that bird's eye view, I think, as well, as you say. So, you know, you're looking at it from a bird's eye view, but you're also chunking it down to, okay, I can see the big picture, I can see where I've been, I can see what I need to bring with me for the following week and so on, learning from, you know, your previous weeks and taking forward what you need to take forward to build on that success on a more detailed note, but also gives you that bird's eye view. So I think it's a really flexible tool that can be used everywhere.
Yeah, and if you don't want to call it a performance management plan, don't call it a performance management plan. Call it what works for you. So your continuous improvement, your development, your ways to be the best me.
Yeah.
It doesn't, the name of it doesn't actually matter at this point. What matters is the great conversations are happening and that the plan exists and is there.
100%. Yep.
All right, so we have come to the end. So this is your opportunity. If you had any questions that as we've been going through, please pop them into chat and we will be happy to answer them for you. So we do have a Leader as Coach new format for people who are new to the webinar series. Everything that we talk about sits in our certificate for in workplace and business coaching, and it is an amazing program that really embeds coaching methodology in everything that you do. And we have the Diploma of Workplace and Business Coaching. So if we don't have any questions, and chuck them in as you need to, I will go to the next slide, which is for those who want to take the photo for their ICF.
Yes.
CCEU, is that right? The CC.
Exactly.
You can tell I'm really good with all the acronyms.
Yeah, that's all right. So yeah, so take a screenshot of that to give you sort of half an hour of that core competency. Let's see, I think we're in the way, so I can't see if there's resource development there, but yeah, so take a photo of that to add to your professional development for your ICF.
And next week, I have the absolute pleasure, we're going to have Veronica Millen on to talk about her book and really look at career. So personal development, the development we've been talking about is sort of in the current job that you're doing and it can link to where you want to go. But the next session, we're really going to delve into your career and what you want to be doing and how. So this is sort of like almost like a smaller picture, and we're going to go super big for the next one. So I would recommend everybody jump onto that one.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. So did Alexandra say something?
Oh, she does the CCE after stopping the screen recording. Okay, I'm going to stop this recording.